Hi, we are live. Hello, 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 everybody. We are here with the amazing David Cox. I don't know whether I should bow or curtsy or salute or what we should do, but here we are with a face that absolutely everybody knows, David Cox, who now is a big figure in the Rightmove world, which is really cool, really exciting. And we are here to talk about something that unfortunately we are all suffering from really badly at the moment, which is where on earth have all the landlords gone? So, David, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really kind of you.
Thank you very much. And wow, what an introduction there.
I'm always honoured when you come and join me on a Zoom. I always think, oh, I've got David, it's so exciting.
It was not that long ago you were my president.
I know. We travelled the country together, didn't we? Went all over the place. We were in train stations and airports and hotel bars and everywhere. Yeah, so we've spent a lot of time together, and I can confirm he's a great guy. So we're here today to talk about something that all of us are suffering from. I worked out some numbers this morning in my Wolverhampton branch, and we have had a shocking 2,098 tenants register in the month of August alone. Now, I don't know about you guys, I'm sure you're all feeling the same. The phones are like this, the tenant inquiries are like this, and then of course they're panicking and calling through because they're not getting the properties. It's horrendous, and it's awful for the tenants. It must be a horrendous situation for them because they're desperate for somewhere to live. It's terrible for us because we're trying to deal with that and filter that. It really seems like a situation where there are no winners. And so we're here to talk about where are all the landlords and what can we do with that in our businesses. Now, David, you must be right at the coalface of this because these inquiries are coming from you. So how is it at Rightmove? How are you finding things?
It's interesting because we obviously keep a huge amount of data on who is using the platform, who is sending the lead. So in preparation for today, I was looking at some of our stats, and I get a daily update every day. So I was looking at the stats for yesterday, so up to midnight last night, versus the same day 12 months ago. And it's really interesting because we've got broadly similar number of people using the website, so viewing the properties. And we all know that people love to shop on Rightmove for possibly properties they can't afford, maybe a quick snooping on what number 42 is doing with their house and whether or not the kitchen has been redone yet. We've all got the people like that, but then you have the proper people that are in the market that are looking to buy, looking to rent. And we measure that on the number of leads that come to you as our customers. So you as letting agents, you as estate agents. So how many times does somebody hit that make inquiry button? And do you know what? Some interesting stats. I am, because I hear from agents up and down the country all the time that we're getting inundated with tenants. But actually, across the whole country, the number of leads are actually down year on year, 6%. But we do have to remember that last year was a massive year.
Wow.
But it's about on par for 2019, which was the last sort of pre-COVID year. But actually, year on year, they are down 6% across the whole country. If you just look at England, taking out London, they're down 1%. And London is not having a good time at the moment. It's down 18%. But that doesn't massively surprise me because if we think in the post-pandemic world, everybody who had moved away from London to get some nice fresh air during the countryside then had to start coming back to work last year. So they all moved back in again. So that doesn't massively surprise me. But actually, leads are down year on year. But what I think we do need to think about is just the sheer volume. So, there are tens of thousands of leads that get sent every single day on our platform. And agents, you just mentioned just over 2,000 registrations a month. It's unprecedented for the amount, and demand is it's getting worse and worse all the time with so many tenants clamoring for so few properties. It's why we're seeing, we'll talk about rent levels that we're seeing advertised on site at the moment, I'm sure in a few minutes. But despite the fact that demand is going down, I think what we're probably seeing as well is people being slightly more realistic about what they're asking for and what they think that they can afford, because affordability is tightening at the moment. And particularly as we go forward to next year and potentially the introduction of the Renters Reform Act, then I think affordability is going to become a massive issue when there's no Section 21 any longer. But interestingly, yeah, demand is actually down amongst tenants.
It
And
doesn't feel like it in our office, David.
I know.
Most letting agents would say the same. It's crazy.
I've had many agents have gone, don't talk rubbish. It's not true. And I was like, yeah. But actually, and would you believe stock is up? But stock is up primarily because it's taking slightly longer to rent. And would you believe
that? What you're saying, it doesn't make sense to me. That's just crazy.
All I'm doing is pulling the stats straight off our website. So yesterday, it took 16% longer to rent a flat or rent a property than it did the same day last year. Now, I will accept that's only 2 days.
Do you think it could be, just thinking about what's going on in the background, that there's so many pre-applications coming through to view the properties that actually it takes longer to filter through the application? I know we're getting like 20 plus applications per property. And so the property's still on the market, but we've got like 20 plus applications to get through. And people are going, you haven't got to my application, you haven't got to my application. It's like this whole thing is a whole new thing for letting agencies to deal with is the volume.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on that one. And it's something I know our agents up and down the country ask us on a regular basis. Help us. We get too many. We can't sift them all. I even know some agents that have said, we are not putting every property on Rightmove because we just get so many applications that if we put one on, we've got enough applications for 3. Yeah. So I am aware that happens as well because they do get flooded. And, we say the moment that property alert goes out, you can see, and you will be able to see in Rightmove Plus your back office system, and the spike is just unbelievable.
That's crazy.
It goes bang, 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 bang. You get inundated with leads. So it's then looking how do you actually sift through the volume of people that actually want it? What criteria do you put? And those are some of the things that agents, landlords would be thinking. What I'm going to get. I know I'm going to put this on the market. I'm going to get 25 leads. What am I going to do? How am I going to sift that? How am I going to do it so that I'm legally compliant, but also making sure that I get the best tenant for my landlord? So obviously things like you can't just say no pets any longer. You can't just say no housing benefit. Looks like they're going to ban no children as well, or put a ban on banning children, if that makes sense. So yeah, some of the things that maybe traditionally agents and landlords have used to try and whittle down that pile, they're being made increasingly unlawful. So it's things like you just can't do that any longer. So you've got to look at affordability. So maybe is it increasing the affordability threshold? We use generally in the industry. You may be slightly different because it does vary area to area, but generally income needs to be 30 times the monthly rent. Some I'm now seeing pushing that up to 35 to try and reduce the number of applicants. Because you're still going to go with the ones that can afford the property the best, the ones that are most likely to be able to pay the rent every month. So it's a really difficult time, even though you're getting inundated with people that actually want to rent.
It's fascinating because when we were out doing the presidential thing and going around the country talking to people, the big thing was what we said to government was, you're going to have a housing shortage. If you continue with, clause 24, and then there was a tenant fee ban and all these changes that they've made, particularly clause 24. Now, of course, we've got the interest rates rise as well. So you've got clause 24, which means landlords can't claim their tax back on their interest, and then the interest rates are rising. So in some landlords I've spoken to, their mortgage is now higher than the rent they receive, and yet they have to pay tax pretty much on the gross revenue, all in sundry. It's insane.
And this is what's pushing up the rent. If you take out the market forces, government intervention over the last 10 years has probably been the largest cause of rent increases, with constant new pieces of law. And landlords are the only business that are taxed on turnover, not profit.
Yeah.
Who gets taxed on turnover? It's ridiculous. It's entirely unfair. But that is how, that is clause 24. That is how it works. But it's why we're seeing rents going up all the time.
Well, I'll use myself as an example. I've got a property that I bought, 20 odd years ago, whatever, and the mortgage has got a few years left on it. But the mortgage for most of that term has been £640 something a month. It's now like 2,400. And you think, like, that is a massive difference from what it was to where it is.
Exactly.
And the rents haven't changed. You know, the rents have crept up a little bit, but not that much. I mean, that's like 5-6x. It's crazy.
Well,
and I'm not going to be alone on that. There's going to be a lot of people in the same position.
well, let's talk rents for a moment. So I always caveat when I talk about prices that this is based on asking price on site. So what you actually achieve. So for rents, it's usually higher. For sales, about the same, maybe a little bit lower. But this is the asking price that we've got on site at the moment. Year-on-year increase in rents, pretty much 11% across the board. So 11% increase UK as a whole. London up 12%, at £2,614 on average. And the rest of the UK up 11%. Average rent in the rest of England, so excluding London, £1,232 a month. Across the entire UK, average rent is £1,473. That is advertised rent, asking rent on site at the moment. Last year we saw almost 20% rent increases in some parts of the country. I think this time last year we were averaging about 14-15%. We've got another 11% this year. Now, you can understand why people are saying that the cost of living crisis is really hurting people and hurting tenants particularly. But at the same point, we've had Section 24 coming in. We've had the tenant fees ban coming in. We had what happened during COVID. We've got landlords leaving the market. And whilst we've got a lot of this new sort of institutional build to rent coming in, they can't deal with the main market. Build to rent operators, they offer some fantastic properties. I've been into various around the country. The flats are beautiful. They come with all these amazing add-on cinema rooms, private dining, bar, restaurant. But they're so expensive. The average person can't afford them. In fact, actually, I've got a colleague at Rightmove who lives in one of these amazing built for rent blocks in London. She absolutely loves it, but she's already paying about 25% over the odds for a one-bedroom flat in where she lives. And they've just put her rent up by £300 a month. And she's like, well, I'm moving out. I can't afford that any longer.
That's crazy.
And it's so high above the actual rest of the market that it deals with a niche market. It's absolutely there. They're full all the time. They're beautiful. But actually for most people, it's out of their price range, which is why we need the main private rented sector. Built for rent accounts for 5, maybe 10% now, if that. We need private landlords. We need more private landlords, and government has got to stop using private landlords as the whipping boy to solve all ills in our housing market.
It's scary, isn't it? I mean, if you think it was 20% last year and then 10% this year, that's a one hell of an increase in rents for renters.
Absolutely.
But it still doesn't match the 5 times cost to landlords, as their interest rates have rocketed and they can't even claim that back against tax. They're paying tax on money they haven't even had. The whole thing is just lunatic when you think about it. Clause 24, it's like, who thought that was a good idea and why did they bring it in? And I mean, you could debate this for hours, I'm sure, but it's just insanity. It doesn't make any sense. And of course, you understand why they all leave the market.
And there were so many people at the time when you and I were sitting in some of those meetings where people were like, landlords won't leave. For most landlords, I can't remember the exact stats. I'm going to be honest. It was 2015, 2016 when this got passed. I can't remember the exact stats off the top of my head, but I'm fairly sure the government impact assessment said that it would not financially impact 80% of landlords. Wow. We all knew that was absolute nonsense. But that was what was written into the government impact assessment. And no matter how many people told them that it's going to impact all landlords, they just wouldn't have it. They had a view that most landlords were basic rate taxpayers, and that this wouldn't push them into higher rate, when for an awful lot of the ones that were basic rate taxpayers, that's exactly what it did. It pushed them into higher rate.
I saw a report out the other day that said that 33%, I think was the figure, 33% of landlords outside of London don't have a mortgage. And in London, 60% of landlords or no, properties purchased don't have a mortgage. Sorry, not landlord specific. 33% outside of London don't have a mortgage, and 60% in London don't have a mortgage. I thought that was quite an interesting number. Have you heard that one?
I have heard. I'm going to be honest. That's about my limit. I've heard about those stats.
I thought that was quite an interesting stat, because we are seeing in quite a few of our agencies branches that with people we talk to and stuff, we are still seeing landlords buying, and you either think, well, that's crazy, or you've got a plan, or you're buying cash, or you're using different types of funding, or whatever the case may be. So there is still a market there. People are still buying.
They are, well, at the moment, it's for a landlord. If they can buy in cash, so if we take the mortgage costs out, if they can buy in cash, this is a good time, because rents are going up, and they are, you know, we said 15-20% last year, 10% this year. If you don't have crippling mortgage costs, this is actually quite a good time to be a landlord. You're getting really strong return, and in some parts of the country, the return on investment is fantastic. London probably still not so much, but for somebody who put my property on the market for sale recently, and the estate agent went, "Are you sure? Do you know how much you could get to rent this out?" I do live in London, but I was absolutely gobsmacked.
Wow! Did you rent it?
Well, if I could, I would, but unfortunately, I need a new house. But
everybody would be terrified to have you as a landlord, David, as well, to be fair. I would be terrified.
Not at all. But it is a good time, because sales prices are starting to go down. Right? UK, year on year, it's down 0.1%. London's down 0.3%. I have to say, my favourite stat when I looked at this earlier, I was like, is that 100% true? So I went back and looked at the raw data, and it turns out it is. The average house price in England, excluding London, yesterday was £1 less than it was on the same day last year.
Good God.
So if that's not literally a standstill market,
yeah,
it went down by £1.
£1. Well, it's very important, that £1
outside of London. So for a landlord, they're seeing, think about, that's a 10% rental increase, and the house price has stayed stagnant. So actually, if you've got the money to invest, now is a good time to invest, because you're getting rental increases, but no price increases.
That's absolutely true. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking to people about is when landlords want to sell, you need a solution for that, because we're all suffering from that. Landlords are wanting to sell. We've also got the situation where I'm old enough, you're not. I'm old enough to remember the buy-to-let mortgage launch in 1997. Don't think you'd been talking about property back then, David.
I'm going to be honest. No, I you were either.
I was actually a buy-to-let advisor in 1997. That's how old I am. But those landlords now come into retirement as well. So there's another double whammy going on here. You've got the clause 24 and everything else and whatever, and you've got landlords coming to the end of their mortgage terms. So they're coming to retirement, or they're passing on, or they want to sell the money and enjoy the whatever. And so we've got that going on. And one of the things I think it's really important for letting agents to do, and interesting to hear your opinion on that, is to, when landlord wants to sell, find a landlord wants to buy, and put the two together. And it's something we've really been working on, and that does work. You have to put marketing out and attract landlords that want to buy, and it's not for all landlords, but those landlords that can, there is an opportunity there to match the two together. And are you seeing activity like that? A lot of landlords buying on Rightmove?
It's slightly difficult to know whether somebody...
They're just buyers for you, aren't they?
Some people do choose to fill in their full profiles, and then we do know whether they're a landlord, a first-time buyer. But with the best will in the world, not that many do that. So it's quite difficult to see that. But it's also, it's interesting, because speaking at various landlord forums to various agents, it's something that we hear about quite often, that effectively the first generation of buy-to-letters are coming to retirement.
They are.
And if you go back through the 20th century, at the beginning of the 20th century and up to World War I, 90% of people in this country privately rented. That figure dropped to 10% by the end of the 1980s as a result of successive rent control laws. And it wasn't until Thatcher had created the Housing Act of 1988 and Section 21, and then the Housing Act of 1996, which legalized the buy-to-let mortgage, basically. and made the AST the standard tenancy. And we've gone from that just under 10% to 20% in a generation. But that generation is now coming to the end of their careers in property. Are they moving it to their children? A lot of them, and I'm not going to deny I'm in that boat as well, that my parents have got a rental portfolio, their mortgages are coming up, and now that they're hitting certain ages, that it's getting more difficult for them. And I hear this from so many other people that, well, why don't you buy it off and then you take the house and you rent it out? But there's so many laws, there's so many things that you can get into difficulty with. The figures don't stack up. That it really needs to be people. And I do wonder whether the traditional mom and pop landlord is going to start struggling. Is it worth becoming a mom and pop landlord? Once you get over a certain amount, absolutely, because then you don't have the risks of losing your entire rental income if a tenant defaults. If you've got 4 or 5 properties, even if one goes down, it's highly unlikely all 4 or 5 will go down. So it's where having the portfolio certainly helps your financial. But we do need to start thinking, government needs to start thinking seriously about what can we do to get the next generation of landlords in. The people, especially people of my generation, I bought my first house in 2010, my first flat in 2010, when mortgage rates were, we'd had the crash, it had collapsed. So I'm going to be honest, I can't remember what my first mortgage rate was, but
I can remember mine. It was 15%, just saying.
Oh, wow.
1989, 15%.
And this is the thing. People, sort of the millennials that are going to be the next generation of buy-to-let landlords, they have no understanding that the base rate was over 15% at the end of the 80s and the early 90s.
I remember it well. I had to have milk on my cornflakes, David, because I couldn't afford. I had to have water on my cornflakes because I couldn't afford any milk, and I had to sleep on the floor on a mattress, and I didn't have a fridge because I just couldn't afford it. It was insane, absolutely insane.
And a lot of people have forgotten that. They've bought in the post-financial crisis world for the first time, so are absolutely gobsmacked. I speak to enough people who are in their 30s and 40s that go, I've got a 6% mortgage rate. What on earth is going on? I'm like, do you realize that you go back to your parents' generation? They were on a 18%, that's 15, 16, 17, 18% interest rate. Now, I will accept, I don't think we're going to be going back to that.
I hope not.
I really hope not.
There'll be a lot of people on the streets if we do.
But we are seeing buy-to-let rates at the 8% now. And I know a lot of the banks, particularly this week, they've changed some of their rates and they have come down a little bit. But there's so much chatter in the market at the moment. They're going to put the base rate up again, which is just going to prompt the banks to whack up the rates. And I was about to say a 4th or a 5th time. I've lost count of how many times the rate's gone up over the last few months, pretty much every month. So it is difficult, but I still think it's an opportunity. Bricks and mortar, if you are investing in bricks and mortar for the long term, then whatever happens, you will, whether you're getting great rental yield or you're getting a decent capital return, because that is obviously the one thing, particularly in London. The rental yields in London aren't great because the cost of the properties are so expensive. But you get decent capital return at the end of it. So it is that swings and roundabouts. But
it is interesting. We're certainly seeing a lot of buyers come through. And we've just had, bizarrely, which seems really bizarre actually, when I was talking to the guys this morning, August was the best month we've ever had since like 3 years ago. So we just had like a record-breaking month for us. And it was like, when we analysed what it wasn't just lets. Because in the old days, it used to be, how many lets have you done? And that was it. There was nothing else. It was just lets. But now it's lets and let only to fully managed takeovers, which can make as much as 50% of the new business, because you're transferring existing managed let only properties into fully managed clients, and acquisitions. Landlords acquiring properties that landlords wanted to sell. So you've got landlords selling, landlords buying. And so I think we've all, as letting agents, got to start looking at different ways to service our landlords, not just let me let your house. It's also let me sell your house. Let me help you buy a house. Let me take you over. Okay, you've got some problems. Let me help you fix those problems, whatever the case may be. We need to be a little bit more broad brush with it, I think, than what we have been in the past, which is just lettings and management. There's so much more to it now.
I think you're absolutely right. And you've also got to be thinking about those other business streams. So talking about the let only to the fully managed, it makes such a difference. It's more expensive to the landlord, yes, but it's the peace of mind that you're giving your property to somebody who knows what they're doing, who will make sure that they've ticked all the compliance boxes, but also they've got all the necessary insurances in place. And for agents, things like rent guarantee insurance, I think that's going to be so important going forward, that especially as we go into the new world with the renters reform and indefinite tenancies, can't increase the rent more than once a year, things like that, and no Section 21, of course. I think things like rent guarantee insurance is going to be so important, and so many agents offer it as part of their fully managed service. And having that sort of protection for a landlord, it's going to be costing you more a month than if you try and do it yourself, but it's that peace of mind that you'll get something at the end of every month. You will get the house back if something goes wrong. And I was talking to a landlord, it was about a month ago now, and they'd let the house just before COVID. It was their first house. They were new landlords. They didn't take out rent guarantee insurance. The tenant stopped paying the rent. It took them 18 months to evict the tenant. She absolutely trashed the house.
Wow.
I think they got slightly taken advantage of by the solicitor that they used to evict the tenant, but they ended up £120,000 out of pocket.
Oh my! Wow.
In lost rent, legal fees, and damage.
Ouch.
And it was quite an expensive property. It wasn't a cheap rent, but it was absolutely trashed. And it's things like, I remember asking, well, what did you do to mitigate it? Well, I didn't know. Well, but you used a letting agent to rent the property. Why didn't you take their fully managed service? Well, it was expensive. I didn't think I'd need it. Would you have a different view now?
Yes.
And I think particularly for landlords, they see a headline figure. It's this much let only. It's this much. That is X £100 that I'm going to be losing. Well, yeah, but if something goes wrong, that goes in a jiffy.
It's like driving a car without insurance. You wouldn't do it, would you? It's just crazy.
Exactly.
It's crazy. I just want to mention something. We're going to do a little event in November, agentrainmaker.live. David is going to be there. He's going to be on stage.
I am indeed.
And he's got a big, massive right move stand as well. I've seen.
I'm bringing some friends as well with me this time.
He's bringing some friends. He is. But Dave's going to be there. He's going to be sharing with us, and we're going to be talking. And we're talking about how we can turn back this tide of landlords disappearing out the market and keep the market growing and keep people in housing and stuff like that. I'm going to challenge him in a second about the 82%, which is my favourite topic at the moment, because it was the big light bulb of last year of like, how can 82% of landlords not be using agents? So we're going to talk about that in a second. But Agent Rainmaker Live is definitely the place to come to. If you want to come along 2 days, we're going to talk about all the challenges, about how to get some landlords on your books, how to generate leads, how to keep your business growing, how to create additional services, how to make some more money. And if you're an estate agent as well, and you've got a property department doing lettings that you've possibly not optimized, now might be the time. So again, open to you guys as well. Come along and see what it's all about. So anyway, David, the 82%. Now, do you remember this in the white paper? The white paper said that 82% of landlords do not use letting agents for managed services. 82%, which means only 18% do use letting agents for managed services. So this is a big problem for our industry, I think, that 82% of them are ignoring us, which is really scary, because in my mind 10 years ago this was about 50%, whereas now it's really changed, and it looks like it's changing fast. What could you advise people as letting agents to do now to really start to get landlords to use them more?
So I do think that 82% was not using the managed service.
Managed service, that's right. Yeah.
So but are you surprised by that? I'm not really sure I was that surprised by that.
You're not surprised? I'm surprised by that. I was happily thinking we'd gone to like 75%, but 82% was like, wow, that's getting very close to the 100. That's just like scary.
I think it goes back to I think it's 50 plus, it's almost 50-50. Just don't use an agent for anything. 50% use an agent for something. So even if it basic let only, and that's why I don't think the dial has changed that much. Might have gone back a little bit, but at the same point, with Section 24 coming along, with the Tenant Fees Act coming along, I'm not surprised landlords have dialed back on using the full managed service. Personally, I think it's about actually explaining what is the benefit, why you can't. There's this price and this price, and I see with so many agents, well, this is our fully managed service and this is our let only. Which one do you want? They don't necessarily then give enough explanation to, well, this is the basic service, which we can do, that's fine, but this is all the additional protection you're going to get by doing this, by taking this more expensive service. And I do wonder at times, agents are very good at selling and letting houses. How good are they at selling themselves? So I think there might be a bit of almost inward reflection. And interestingly, it's actually something you said to me years and years ago, that agents need to believe in themselves, believe in all the extra stuff that they do. And I remember you talking to me about, when you started your business, you did A, B, and C. Now A, B, and C is somewhere near T with the number of different things that you need to do in order to remain compliant. And you just do it, and you absorb that cost into your business without increasing the fee, but also without shouting about. I say you. I know you don't, and you are very, very good at explaining to your clients. But I do think some agents aren't as good at explaining to their clients about what they actually do and the value that they add to their business, and the value that they add in just pure safeguard for their landlords.
Well, I think the other thing as well is you touched on it there by saying, we say, which service do you want? Surely it's better if you're the expert and they've brought you in as the expert, that you prescribe what's right for them. I mean, you wouldn't go to your doctor and say, oh, I've got this, that, and the other. Say, well, which would you prefer, cancer, or would you like something else? He's going to tell you what you've got and what you need, so I don't understand why people give people a choice. This really perplexes me, and I've banned it from all my branches. If ever I hear anybody given a choice, we're going to be having a very strict conversation. You tell them what they need. Okay, so you're going away scuba diving, you're going off to the Bahamas, you're going to be living in a little hut somewhere, your mom's going to be, holding a set of keys, and you want let only. It's just like, no.
Exactly.
No.
I think it's something that maybe the online agents, so that like the pure online agents, have actually, they've got it down a bit better, mainly because it's visual. So when you're looking online and I want to do this cheaply, which one do I want? But actually talking to some of the pure online agents, they're like, very few use our basic package. Almost everybody uses the medium or high package. And it's there, but and okay, I accept on a website you can tinker and play, and for somebody that works for a website that every single pixel on every single page is analyzed and focus grouped before it goes onto the live environment. I do appreciate it's easier when it's in an electronic and digital form, rather than having to train people and make sure they have that conversation the same every time. But I also think that the human element, when you're looking at an online agency, you're engaging with a web page. I think you'd be much better when you're engaging with a real person, because you can, what is it? You can see the whites of their eyes, and do you trust them or not?
It's basic marketing as well. If you talk to any marketing expert anywhere in the world, they'll tell you that if you've got 3 packages, most people will go for the middle one. But most letting agents have lettings and management, and that's it. They don't have a top tier, let only, fully managed. They might do rent collection only, but most don't have like a VIP package. And what we've experienced is when people do put a top level tier in, for the people that like to go left on the plane and want to stop at the Savoy and like champagne rather than Prosecco, those people, David, you know who they are. They will pay for the higher level, won't they? But they're not going to buy it if you don't offer it. So I think it's important to have those those 3 levels for landlords that give them
I absolutely, and it is that. It might seem silly, but it is that subliminal thing. And exactly, it is what the marketing experts say. It's why you see so many things come in threes.
Yeah.
It's why we offer 3 packages to our customers.
Exactly. It's why we have 3 packages. Because it works. And everybody not everybody, in my experience, about 75-80% go for the middle package, and then 20-25% go for the top package. It tends to be roughly about that for us, for our split anyway. So but again, I see so many people just don't have it. And if you don't have it, there's an extra 2 or 3%. You can charge 15 to 18%, depending on where you are in the country for your top tier package. But if you haven't got it, no one can go for it. And it's just, again, being clever, being more savvy, being more marketing specific, and thinking, how can I help people and serve people more? And there's a flip side to this as well. We all have landlords that really want you to work really, really hard with them and for them. And then you have some landlords that are just chilled. They just don't want any hassle. Now, why should this landlord pay the same as this landlord? And so for me, there should be a difference here, because if I'm really demanding and I want this statement and that written out, and I want this and I want that and everything else, then I should pay extra for that. Whereas, the easygoing landlord that just wants you to just do the basics and probably shouldn't. So I think it's fair on both sides as well.
Yeah. I do think, particularly for new landlords, they just don't know what they need to do. They think, oh, well, I'll just buy a property. I'll just rent it out. And I'm not going to deny, when they said to me a few weeks ago, oh, well, this is what you could get if you rent it out. And there was that initial thing of, oh, wow, well, let's multiply that by 12. And yeah, okay, that's quite nice. But even for me, I didn't then think, right, well, how much is the tax going to be? How much is all the compliance requirements going to be? Is this going to meet this? Is that going to meet that? And where am I going to do the right to rent check? All the various things that you just think of innately as a letting agent. There's the process, bang, 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 bang. But landlords think top line figure, oh, well, I can rent that out. How difficult can it be? And it's actually really difficult. So I think looking at that, thinking about that 82% stat, I would almost be tempted to say we want to be working on the 50% that don't use an agent at all, not trying to, because we've got 20%, well, 18%, 50% basically. If we can get that 50% to 60%, 70%, 80%, then that 18% naturally grows in its own right. And then once we've got to more and more landlords using agents full stop rather than doing it themselves, that's when we can start. And I do think we should be doing whatever we can to get more landlords to use agents, because we hear such horror stories.
I know. And those horror stories are powerful. So 2018, we started really focusing on marketing to let-only landlords. I changed all of our marketing to let-only landlords, not because we wanted let-only landlords, but we wanted let-only landlords to realise the challenges, the pains, the problems, the issues they could, would, and do face. And by changing our marketing to being more focused on let-only landlords, what's happened now is people are coming to us going, I've got this tenant, or I've had this terrible scenario, or this has happened, or that's happened. And it becomes easier to transfer them because they've got to know you, you're speaking their language, you're talking to them about the challenge that they've had. And all of a sudden you think, it'll strike a chord. Yes, I've had that. These people can help me. And I'll come over. But yet I see so many letting agents, they focus on marketing to the fully managed landlords, to the converted, to the ones, the 18%, the ones that love them anyway, rather than going for the ones that have always said, I don't need an agent. Because my experience, I'll tell you this now, they're easier to convert when they've got a tenant than they are when they've got an empty property. When they've got an empty property, they don't need you. When they've got a tenant, they need you. And so it's finding the little pain points that they're suffering at that moment of difficult tenant, whatever, or challenges or issues or just complexity. Those are the times you're going to get them and transfer them over. So it's really
also it's having products and services as well that when you're in that situation, that you can actually help them. So I'm just taking that as a prime example. Rent guarantee. It's quite difficult for a landlord to get rent guarantee insurance midway through a tenancy. It's not difficult for an agent. It's a service that so many referencing agencies and insurance companies provide direct to their agent clients. They don't necessarily provide it to a private landlord directly. And therefore, if they are having a problem tenant, and maybe they haven't actually got into rent arrears just yet, but you can see it coming down the line in the not too distant future. Now, that is where a letting agent, let me take that over, get that sorted, get you some rent guarantee just in case they stop paying rent. And then should anything go wrong, but also you've got the knowledge about what to do when things go wrong. So you will have experienced COVID with tenants. We couldn't get them evicted. It's not even really now back to normal through the courts. And now we're going to have the renters reform, so it's never going to go back to normal. I'm kind of working on the principle that the last time anybody really effectively used Section 21 was some point in 2019. And that was really the death of Section 21, because it just took so long to get them out through the courts. Therefore, it forced the industry to look at different ways to solving these problems, if you think about it. I know, because I was advising a lot of agents and landlords at that point in time that however galling this might be, commercially, you want to get that property back as quickly as possible. Therefore, there is going to be a question to the tenant of how much money for you to leave at the end of the month. I'll give you your deposit back. I'll give you your first month's rent on your next property if you get out. And however emotionally galling and awful that must be for a landlord who knows that they've trashed the house, they have not paid the rent. But commercially, you want to get that property relet as quickly as possible. And certainly during COVID times and now, the rents are pretty good. So a landlord trying to do that themselves, they're not going to be able to disconnect emotionally from the situation that they found themselves in. Whereas they go to the letting agent, you're doing it in a business capacity, you're not as emotionally involved as the landlord is going to be. You're going to be making sound commercial decisions, but also you've got the knowledge. This isn't a landlord doing it for their first time. This is your bread and butter. You know the techniques that are most effective at getting a tenant to go. You know about the mediation services that the courts and other people provide to help solve that problem. So these are all the things that landlords might not be thinking about at the start, but when it really starts to hit, they think about it. They think about it then. They probably always then stay with the agent that has got them out of the mess they got themselves into. But how do we start talking to them about that earlier?
Well, that's where you're talking about lives, videos, social media, blogs, marketing, funnels, whatever. Just start talking their language. You're exactly right. We found that landlords that have I'm so sick of talking to them, I don't want to talk to them, I've just had enough, they are the ones that are ready to swap over, because it is that emotion, isn't it? And you say if you can solve someone's emotional issues, as in, don't worry, we'll deal with it. It's like, oh, thank you. It's like a breath of fresh air. They can just let go of it and walk away. And it does have a big difference. It really does with those landlords. And that's why I say they're easier after they've got a tenant than they are at the tenant. I think a lot of letting agents think, oh, it's so hard to convert on the valuation. That's not the time to get them. The time to get them is when they've got a problem tenant. What we tend to find is you don't just get one property, you get the entire portfolio, because they go, just have it, because it scares them and they just want to get rid of the whole portfolio. So if you're not doing it, if you're watching this as letting agents, just start looking at let owners. It's a really, really great market to convert. We've all got them on our books just sitting there. It's a great opportunity to really convert. So, I mean, I just want to reiterate again, we don't want to take up too much of your time, David. Actually amazing. We've got Agent Mimic live in, I think, 9 weeks, David. I think that's pretty scary. It's like 9 weeks. It's like, oh, panic time. Like,
You put on a fantastic show. You did last year. I've no doubt you will do it again this year.
We always do. It's always a show, darling. It's always a show. There'll be lights, there'll be music. There'll be everything. There's, over a dozen speakers. We've got experts in business acquisitions. We've got experts in running webinars. We've even got a country singer who launched herself on social media as well, which is really cool.
Wow.
We've got yourself and all the other industry experts, and we've got loads of tech experts as well. So it's going to be an absolute razzle dazzle of things for letting agents and estate agents with property portfolios that want to squeeze the juice, get more marketing out there, generate more revenues, solve some of the challenges, focus on the issues and say, what can we do about that? And as you know, David, we always have a load of fun as well. You enjoyed it last time, didn't you? I remember you going, this is amazing.
I had a wonderful time. It's the first time I've been to Agent Rainmaker last year, but I thought it was fantastic. The energy in the room is it is palpable. You can feel it, and it's why I do think it's slightly different from any other conference, because you just don't get that level of energy. I think it's the energy, it's the enthusiasm, and actually the warmth from everybody in the room. And everybody is there to learn to be the very best. And you do see in certain conferences where they're kind of all competitors, so all a little bit reserved and polite and sitting there. You definitely don't get that at Agent Rainmaker, and that's what I loved last year.
One of the comments.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I would say one of the comments we get a lot actually is people that come for the first time, is they see people on stage, and we use a lot of real life letting agents on stage to tell their story about how they've increased revenue or done whatever they've done, or beat this or beat that or whatever, and real heart-wrenching stories in some cases, and some people go, are they really letting agents? Are they just like paid actors or something? But then later on in the day, they're chatting and having coffee with the person that was on stage, and they're like, it's a real human. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's I always find is the best way to learn. It's why whenever I do as much as possible try to put like real life anecdotes that people have talked to me, or that I've seen on the site, that people can you can relate much better to somebody who's been in that situation than somebody just kind of standing up on a stage. So it is fantastic. I think the one thing that you just mentioned there that we haven't really talked about yet is tech. And we are seeing an explosion of property technology, financial technology to help people run their businesses at the moment. And I know you're going to get a few exhibitors, tech exhibitors at Agent Rainmaker in a few weeks' time. We are obviously a tech company. One of the first prop tech companies, in fact.
And they'll have the biggest stand, guys, by the way. It's huge. Huge.
You don't
huge.
do anything by
the hotel to get it in.
But the idea of tech and why companies like Rightmove have been so successful over the last few years is because we are filling a niche in the market. And agents are fantastic agents. Why do all the admin yourself? Why bother yourself with huge amounts of stuff that you don't like doing, you don't want to do, you just have to do? And there is so much good prop tech out on the market at the moment. So much that you have to work out what you need for your business and then go and seek that out, because everybody will tell you they can do absolutely everything. But what is the bit that my business isn't brilliant at? And whatever the answer to that is for your business, and every business is different, whatever the answer is for your business, there will be the right piece of prop tech out there for you. You've just got to go and find it. But getting good technology can absolutely revolutionize how you do your business. And I am going to use
the level of calls now, and the level of workload, and the level of applications, and we need tech, because otherwise our humans, our people in the office, which are there to look after clients, to do deals, to manage the business, are just like this all day. I mean, we've gone from 300 tenant registrations to over 2,000. I mean, that is, how many times is that? 6 times? That's crazy. And that's where tech really helps, isn't it, David? Like, just sort that mess out, whatever that mess is, whether it's handling the calls, whether it's handling the volume, whether it's handling the inquiries, whether it's handling the admin, whether it's whatever it is, we need tech more than ever now. More than ever.
I could not agree more. If I can indulge in two examples. It's one of our own examples. So we are currently rolling out something for subject access requests to actually use machine learning to deal with subject access requests. And we think it might reduce the time it takes us to do a subject access request by between 70 and 80%, which is huge. Now, agents probably don't get that many subject access requests, but for a large tech company that has personal data of about half the British population, we get a lot of them. And we have an entire dedicated team whose job it is to respond to subject access requests right to be forgotten requests and all the data subject rights under the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. But we found a piece of technology. It's absolutely fantastic. I was blown away when I saw the demo. And yeah, that was something we knew it was time consuming. It was laborious for our teams because it was so manual. But there was a piece of prop tech out there. Well, that wasn't actually prop tech, that was legal tech out there that solved our absolute need. And I will guarantee there are things out there for your business. And we are just about to launch a new product. It's in trial phase at the moment that will help reduce what we call pre-qualified leads for you, so that you will get them. You know, you've had 25 leads. These ones are red. These ones are amber.
2,000. 2,000. 2,000.
So yeah, and that is something that we will. It's in beta testing at the moment. We will be launching it to the market. So if you are coming to Agent Rainmaker, it will be live and available in the market at Agent Rainmaker. I think it's actually.
Oh, I do love a good launch.
Yeah, we are planning on kind of making quite a big launch up there, because I do. It will help. It will help you specifically, awesome. And any agents that are inundated with leads. Which ones do I pick? And it's designed to help you navigate the whole list.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, these are the sort of things, whether it's us at the very beginning of the tenancy cycle or other people during the tenancy cycle, everybody is trying to innovate to help our customers and our consumers. So
it makes sense, because if you think about a lot of the process in a letting agency, it's quite formulaic, isn't it? You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. It's pretty. So it's the sort of business that can be very automated if people put the tech in place. So it makes a lot of sense. And yes, we've got about 20 exhibitors at Agent Rainmaker Live, I think, of which you are the biggest. I'll keep saying that. We've got about 20 exhibitors at Agent Rainmaker Live, and some of the best tech in the industry, I believe, anyway. So I think it's going to be a great place to do some shopping, because you're there for 2 whole days as well. One of the things that the exhibitors say to me is that it's great because you get to know the people there, rather than just having a quick pass by to pick up a squeezy ball or whatever. You actually get to really know them over the 2 days. And don't forget the party on the Friday night as well, David.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you'll be there.
Looking forward to that one.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming today. It's been absolutely amazing. It's been awesome to speak to you again. I always love our little chats. And hopefully you guys watching have really enjoyed listening to, particularly David and myself, chat about the lack of landlords and how we can sort of combat that. And hopefully you're going to go and grab your ticket to Agent Rainmaker Live so you can see David's launch of his new sexy products, and also come and see how we can help you get more landlords on your books and stop them disappearing, which is really cool and really important, and optimize those letting agencies. So thank you all very much. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will be here live again next week. So I hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Thank you.